kababayan, ito po ang ating pag-uusapan. Handang-handa na ang Kamara para sa gaganaping impeachment trial. Kinumpirma ni Representative Luis Tro na ready na ang House of Representatives na tumayo bilang mga prosecutors. Ipiniliwanag din niya na may proseso sa pagpili ng mga kongresista na bubuo sa prosecution team na haharap sa Senado para magpakita ng mga ebidensya at testigo. Sinabi niya na napakahalaga na sumunod sa tamang proseso o due process. Trabaho daw ng lahat na siguraduhin maging patas, mabilis at malinaw ang paglilitis para sa kapakanan ng publiko. Panoorin po natin yan. Pero bago ang lahat mga kababayan, kung hindi ka pa nakasubscribe sa ating channel, mag-subscribe ka na para updated ka sa mga videos natin at kumalat itong video natin sa iba pa nating mga kababayan. Salamat po. Let's go.
Please take us behind the scenes. 257 votes to impeach the Vice President. What went on for those votes to be acquired?
Well, it is believed, Karen, that it's the evidence that really swayed most of the House members to voting in favor of the articles of impeachment. I remember during my last interview, I mentioned three important things which the House members must consider. One, of course, is the evidence. Second is the party leadership position. And third is the conscience. And by conscience, it means whatever is the best interest of the Filipino people. My realization kahapon, Karen, is if the evidence is strong, you will get also the support of the party leaders. And perhaps even the conscience will favor voting in favor of the impeachment.
All right. Now, a list has come out, and I wanted to ask you an initial list. Actually, this was printed, I'd like to say, by the Inquirer 14 hours ago, and two abstained, of course, but there were some that voted no. Do you have the numbers of how many voted no?
I think it's 25, more or less.
25. But in the initial, merong to be determined. So it means there was a change, no?
Yeah,
Merong nung
I
una
saw
to
that
be
also
determined.
in the news. Yeah, I saw that in the news that the yes vote from 255 was corrected to 257. But I'm not certain about the no vote and the abstention as to the number.
Oo. So yung to be determined, would you know what went on? What transpired for that to shift into a yes vote?
Well, perhaps it's because there was a recounting, I believe, no? Actually, I'm not a privy to this. I just saw it in the news that the number was changed from 255 to 257. So I can only presume that they made a recounting resulting to the increased number of votes for yes from 255 to 257. And then what you're asking about to be determined, perhaps those votes of some members which was not determined at the onset. That's why the remarks was to determine. And I hope that the same was included already in the new number of votes with respect to yes, no, and the abstention.
Now, you talked about party leadership as a second factor. A PDP Laban was said to essentially make this a loyalty test for its members, that those who voted to impeach would not be able to find refuge in PDP Laban or in the party. Would you know of any PDP Laban members who went against that mandate?
I don't know, Karen. I haven't checked actually the list of the members who voted against the articles of impeachment. But of course, I would anticipate that these are the PDP members. But as to who these are, I haven't checked, Karen.
Oo. So PDP Laban had a party line decision. Were there other parties that had party line decisions?
What I know.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Karen, what I know about the voting that happened yesterday was the individuals were given the prerogative to decide on whether to vote yes or no. That is with respect to the other parties. You're correct about the PDP. They have a party position. But with respect to the other parties, like Lakas, NPC, NP, PFP, what I always hear is conscience vote. Kung ano ang gusto ng individual members. But like what I said earlier, kapag pala malakas ang ebidensya, it will seem to me, I'm speaking for myself, no? Even the party leaders voted in favor of the articles of impeachment because for me, the vote or the position of the party leaders matter because it somehow reflects the position of the leadership. And of course, the third factor, whatever is the best interest for the Filipino people, it goes together whenever the evidence is strong.
Yeah.
That is my realization yesterday.
Yeah, and I'm curious, did you see a change in NUP? In the beginning of the impeachment, NUP issued, right, a statement that they would not support it. Did you see a shift?
Yes, because I also saw that interview of DS Ronnie Puno, in which he said that they will not be supporting the impeachment process. But after the April 22 hearing, I saw another interview and he was commenting that the evidence is strong, something like that. So for me, it is a factor, really, the evidence that was presented before the Justice Committee. It is the biggest factor that really swayed the House members, leading us to giving us a vote in the affirmative of 257. Karen, this is way beyond the number which voted in favor of the first impeachment back in the 19th Congress. You will remember that was part of my sponsorship speech kahapon, no? It was only 215. Kahit ako, na-surprise ako with 257. That's way beyond.
Now, in the first impeachment of Vice President Duterte, there were allegations that part of the reason that the 2025 budget was actually compromised was they were in exchange for promises to legislators to actually sign the impeachment. I'm sure you've heard that before. Narinig nyo na po yan noon. Ito may alegasyon na naman na may mga pinapangako, may mga banta kapag ikaw ay pumirma o hindi pumirma.
Well, Karen, no, I can speak only for myself. About the 2025 budget, I vehemently deny that the vote in the articles of impeachment in the 19th Congress affected our allocation in 2025. As a matter of fact, Karen, I was part of the Good Government Committee, the committee which investigated on confidential funds. I was one of the prosecution panel. And in my district, as much as I recall that the budget was even decreased, and I am among the Kongs na nagkaroon ang distrito namin, nagkaroon din ng mga for later release, no? So I don't understand why the people are claiming na this serves as a reward, an award, or whatsoever if you support the impeachment. Kasi during the 19th Congress, I was part of the prosecution panel. I was part of the Good Government Committee. And yet my district suffered from this decrease in budget, in allocation. As a matter of fact, meron pa ngang mga for later release and up to this time, hindi na nga na-release, no? So, ito na naman yung allegation for 20th Congress that those who will be supporting will be given a lot of budget and those who will not support will have no budget. I deny that, Karen. But I'm speaking only for myself.
All right.
Wala pong kumausap sa akin, nakiusap, o nanakot with respect to my position as Justice Chair in this impeachment proceeding. But of course, this applies only in as far as I am concerned. I don't know with respect to the other members of the House.
Okay, now take us through the process. The Vice President has already been impeached. What about the articles of impeachment? What is the timetable for that to be sent to the Senate? What happens after the voting?
The Constitution says it must be transmitted immediately to the Senate, no? And the Senate, upon presentation of the articles of impeachment, must convene immediately as well, forthwith, diba? So I have to check, Karen, if there has been actual transmittal already, of the articles of impeachment. I mean, the physical copy of the articles of impeachment to the Senate because that is required under the Constitution. No?
Oo.
So, according to the Constitution, there must be immediate transmittal and then there will be presentation of articles of impeachment before the Senate. After presentation of articles of impeachment, the impeachment court has to convene as such, no? And then after that, the trial should begin.
So, kumbaga, nagbotohan ka nga po, immediately for you should be by today. Tama?
Yes,
Oo,
yes,
dapat by
yes.
today. Now, the Supreme Court has redefined the meaning of forthwith, right? In the dictionary, forthwith would mean immediately. Sa Tagalog, agad-agad. Pero the Supreme Court redefined it in its decision to be within reasonable time. So kumbaga, hindi na nga forthwith yung pagkakaalam natin. What to you is within reasonable time?
Well, my understanding about that decision of the Supreme Court is they are just recognizing the exclusive prerogative of the Senate as to how they are going to apply the word forthwith or immediately, depending on the circumstances surrounding the Senate. Like kahapon, Karen, no? We were discussing already, let us transmit. We need to transmit. That's what the Constitution says. Pero kita natin ang gulo sa Senado. We do not even know who will be receiving the articles of impeachment. So I think that that is the only point of the Supreme Court when they use the word reasonable period in interpreting the word forthwith. It remains immediate. It remains agad-agad. It remains madali, the meaning of forthwith. However, you have to consider as well the surrounding circumstances of the Senate. And the illustration that I can present to you is the situation yesterday where we are not certain, naghahabulan, di ba? There was a scramble between the NBI and the Senate security. Tapos, walang tao doon sa loob ng session hall for a very long period of time. And I think the minority were not at the Senate during that time, no? So, you're not certain. Paano mo ba i-transmit who will be receiving these articles of impeachment? I think that's the intention of the Supreme Court when they made use of the reasonable time depending on the circumstances surrounding the Senate.
So I'll ask you about the Senate later, the Senate leadership. But the Supreme Court decision also made a comment on the rules of transmittal. So the articles of impeachment must be transmitted by the House through a plenary session, providing all members with copies of the complaint and evidence. Tapos na yun. Pero yung transmittal through a plenary session, will that be done today? Nagawa ba yun kahapon? How do you explain that part?
We were not able to. You're talking about the transmittal to the Senate?
Yes, ma'am.
Through the session? Okay, so we were not able to do that yesterday, first and foremost. The physical copy, we're talking about the physical copy. Because it's quite late when we were able to conclude all the explanation of votes, no? And then we considered also the situation in the Senate. So we will be talking today as to the proper way of transmitting it to the Senate, considering as well the decision of the Honorable Supreme Court.
Now, alam nyo, nagkaroon ng definitions, calendar days, session days.
Correct.
You know, kapag yun yung may Justice Committee hearing. Pero etong sitwasyon na ito, hindi rin naman araw-araw ang sesyon sa Senado. What happens then? Do you have to transmit it only on the days na may session? Or can you transmit it at any point in time?
I acknowledge, Karen, that there are inconsistencies between the existing laws on one hand and some Supreme Court decisions on the other hand, no? What we do is to always take the conservative side, to always take the safer side, to always take the more cautious side, which means that if the Supreme Court decision is talking about transmittal during the session, notwithstanding the fact that impeachment proceedings should not be affected by session, by breaks, by recess, because this is entirely different from legislative proceedings, as I have pointed out yesterday, no? We will definitely be taking the more conservative route. That is, we follow the pronouncement of the Supreme Court. That is in as far as I am concerned. But of course, we will be having a meeting perhaps today, no, to address the proper way of transmitting the physical copy of the articles of impeachment to the Senate.
Okay. Now, the change in leadership in the Senate, some said that this will gravely affect the impeachment case of the Vice President. In handling the leadership right now are supporters of the Vice President. They were in the minority. You have 4 or 5 loyalists of the Duterte administration now in the majority.
So, Karen, let us give them the benefit of the doubt. If they convene the impeachment court within the ambit of the word forthwith, within the meaning of the word forthwith, which should not be delayed, no? Kasi we find no reason why it should not be convened. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. After all, this is not purely political. This is constitutional as well. This is legal. And the survey is actually very much in favor of pushing for the trial. So I hope they will be very, very conscious about that. Most especially the constitutional mandate, no? Sinabi naman kahapon ng ating bagong Senate President that the impeachment process will still push through. He said that. So we are anticipating that indeed they will convene the impeachment court as soon as the articles of impeachment is presented before them.
No. So the convening of the impeachment court is a matter of time. I believe this was discussed before nung panahon ni ERAP. Sinabi nila it was convened roughly, I think, after 2 months. All right? But itong first impeachment laban kay Vice President, in August 2025, Senator Marcoleta officially moved to dismiss the impeachment complaint against the Vice President. He argued it was unconstitutional, void from the beginning, in violation of the process, and some observers have said that a supporter may once again move to dismiss the impeachment complaint. Pwede daw mangyari ulit yun, ma'am.
Of course, we are not disregarding that possibility, no? But ultimately, Karen, of course, pwedeng mangyari yun. Yun nangyari last time, no? But what I'm trying to point out is, this is the second time that the articles of impeachment is transmitted to the Senate, no? I hope that the senator judges or the senators will be very much sensitive about the sentiment of the public, no? After all, this is a constitutional process that is very clear in our Constitution. As a matter of fact, there is no option not to convene. The only option is to convene. And on a legal perspective, if they don't convene, to my mind, this is a proper subject matter of a petition for mandamus in order to compel them to convene the impeachment court. But beyond that, is the sovereign Filipino people who have been waiting for answers to this impeachment complaint since 2024, no? I have a lot of faith to the senators of the Republic, regardless of whether they belong to the majority or to the minority. I can honestly say that they are very much aware of the sentiment of the Filipino people now. So I am anticipating, really, I am positive that they will be convening the impeachment court and proceed to trial of these articles of impeachment.
No. Now, Representative Luistro, in the last impeachment complaint of the Vice President, you had Tito Soto as the Senate President, perceived to be friendlier to the administration. We're reminding the public, diba, na opposition na, the perceived opposition. Duterte sympathizers ang nasa liderato ng Senado ngayon. So once they convene, eto itanong ko, once they convene, because it's mandatory, some are asking that what if there's a move to dismiss? Do you believe they are allowed as a court? They have that flexibility to choose to dismiss without actually pursuing the trial. Remember, that was argued before. Sabi nila, kami yung korte, pwede naman kami mag-decide kung pwede namin i-dismiss. Ganun ang trabaho ng korte. Can they do that in this case?
Karen, the rules of the Senate on impeachment does not speak about dismissal. It only speaks about conviction or acquittal. And my interpretation to that is, dun kasi sa rules of court in ordinary criminal proceeding, meron tayo tinatawag na mga prohibited pleading, no? If the rule does not provide for a motion to dismiss, then that means that the rules does not allow the same. And the only mandate of the Constitution is to proceed to trial. And after trial is decided the case, there are only two kinds of decision: either you acquit or you convict. No? So I just think that the senators really need to be very, very faithful to the rules of impeachment, their existing rules of impeachment, unless they change that, no? Because if they change that, it will raise a lot of doubt to the Filipino people.
Yeah.
That Senate rules of impeachment, according to our former Senate President, has been the same. Senate rules of impeachment that they used during the time of President Erap, during the time of Chief Justice Corona, no? So if they will be changing that, most especially the substantial portion of the same, it will raise doubt to the public why they are changing the Senate rules on impeachment.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that this is being discussed now because there's so much interpretation with what the Constitution is silent on. For example, at one point, there were lawyers who were saying that if the no votes in the lower house exceeded 106, it can't be passed into the
that's
Senate. But then the Constitution doesn't say that. All it needs, it's 106. Kahit mas marami pa kayong no, irrelevant yun. Diba?
Yeah. Yes,
Oo.
yes, that's correct. That's correct.
So
It
parang
makes
gani-
mention only
Yeah.
about the 1/3 approving. So if you do not reach the 1/3 approving, it means that the impeachment complaint is already dismissed.
Yeah, and it's the same argument with what you mentioned. It's clear you either acquit or convict, but it
Yeah.
does not, it is silent on can you de facto dismiss. Kumaga walang ganon.
The rule does not provide
Oo,
that.
you can't
And under the
interpret.
rules and evidence, if the law does not provide, you should not provide.
Hmm.
If the rules does not mention about the dismissal, then you cannot raise or act on dismissing the impeachment, the articles of impeachment.
All right. Now, Chairperson Luistro, would you be able to share at least with us a part of the list or the list of the 11 public prosecutors? I mean, I've seen some of them. I've asked, I know you are in the list, and you've told me you will take on the challenge. Shel Diokno, is he in the list?
Well, my interview about the possible prosecutors, I only express my preference about who will be joining the prosecution panel in my perspective as the Justice Chair.
Sure.
Because I said that it is important that they have correct appreciation of the case and the evidence and the law, no? And of course, these prosecutors I named would be prosecutors I named, or at least my recommendees.
Yeah. So your recommendees, ma'am, can you name them?
Yeah, that includes, of course, Joel Chua, Bel Zamora. We wanted to have Keith Flores. We wanted to have Lorden Suwan, Rog Gutierrez, of course, Kong Laila and Kong Chel, our SDML Nonoy Defensor, no? We need to be 11.
Oo, parang 8 pa lang yun, ma'am. Pagkabilang
Oo,
ka,
parang
9.
8 pa lang yun,
No,
no?
pagkasama ka, 9 na. So
Yeah,
you need...
but we are considering other members. We still have other members in mind, no? But this will be depending on the final action of the plenary, and the party leadership, of course, will be significant on deciding who will be joining the panel of prosecutors. I just want to make clear, Karen, no, I am just expressing my preference with respect to the House members who will be joining the prosecution panel. That is because I am thinking that it is important that they have a correct appreciation of the case, the evidence, and the law. And I've seen them. I've seen this House member.
So yun lang po mga kababayan. God bless.